Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video. My mod Sarah presented me with this interesting conversation topic that's perhaps the most interesting that we've seen for the past 10 years. According to this video, Jingliu has fell off. The decline of Jingliu. How she fell off so quickly. So the question is not whether Jingliu fell off. The question is how she fell off, right? So without further ado, let's get into today's content.
Being a member of the High Cloud Quintet and the previous Swordmaster of the Shinjo, a gorgeous animated short was made to promote her. She was all the rage during the early days of honkaistarrail, with tons of power, tons of lore, and tons of power creep at the time. But for some inexplicable reason, after the Lawful Trailblaze mission concluded, it felt as if she completely vanished off the face of the earth, almost like Poyo forgot about her. Fortunately, narrative-wise, they briefly lampshaded that she was still large in 2.4, and with 2.5 having been out for a while by the time you see this, I'm sure we'll finally have that loose end taken care of. But how well has Jingliu aged gameplay-wise? She was once considered the best DPS character in the game.
Oh my fucking god. The fact that this low. Okay, you know what? I had my up and downs with Qingque. As of this current moment, I think me and her were on good terms. Because whether I like it or not, Qingque made me pop off quite hard. Especially on Bilibili. Some could even say Qingque made my career as the QQ man, Qingque xia. So you know what? We also made a little bit of a gamba, right? I'm not sure if you guys have seen the clip. I was like, MiHoYo, land me this crit, and I quit Watering Waves. And then Qingque lands me the crit. So yeah, we have a little bit of a blood pact going on. So anyways, let's
For
continue.
being an all-around good attacker with a very consistent baseline. Anecdotally speaking though, I can't remember the last time I actually used her, nor do I feel like many people use her right now. She's not as obscure as Blade. I don't remember the last time I actually used her, nor do I feel like many people use her right now.
6.94% in Memory of Chaos, 1.63% in Pure Fusion 4, and 7.56% in Apocalyptic Shadow. I think it's not even that bad. Like look at my Grossilla. 1.17%, 3.51, and 1.4%. Where's my man Jingyuan? 0.88%, 6.33. Where is Jingyuan here? 0.07%. So yeah, I think it's really not too bad.
Now,
You know?
she's not as obscure as Blade, not by any stretch of the imagination, and overall opinions of her are still more or less favorable, albeit not quite as high praise compared to what it used to be. So for today, we'll be discussing what happened to Jingliu over the past year. Do we overrate her, or is she merely a victim of circumstance? Now before we talk about Braxavon's favorite waifu who
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but this guy gives me creepy vibes. You know, it's kind of creepy. It is what it is.
we cheated on multiple times, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for today, ExpressVPN. I can't help but wonder if the period of dominance by the Destruction Trio is to blame for their mild loss of relevance now. Blade, Lunai Danheng, and Jingliu, namely the latter two, were effectively the best units in the game by a wide margin at the time. Reason for that was because of how off-the-shelf they were. While the majority of HSR's roster entails characters working in concert with each other for maximum efficiency back in version 1, there still had yet to be enough units for full cohesive parties. The follow-up engine didn't see its first flagship lineup until 2.2, damage over time wasn't fully realized until 2.0, and break teams weren't a thing until 2.3. So for most of 1.0 through 1.6, players were in need of someone who could work really well, regardless of who they had. Blade was a good start in that technically he was fully self-sufficient, but in light of not receiving any meaningful support since then, his mediocre ceiling has relegated him to being a mid-tier more often than not. Lunai Danheng was a measurable upgrade in strength, possessing an unmatched DPS ceiling back then, but the exorbitant SP cost to play him at maximum strength made him less accommodating to play. That's where Jingliu came in. All things
Just pull E2.
considered, at the time of her release, she had virtually no downside relative to the existing competition. Nearly every DPS unit that came before had some kind of limitation to them that could not be overcome through proper play alone. Seela was at risk of getting totally screwed if she came across minions who can tank more than one hit.
Just crit better.
As I've gone over intensively last week in my video on
He's unfixable.
Jingliu, among other things, he can get shut down completely if he gets crowd controlled. Dan Heng can run out of SP, and Tanya didn't come out until
Yeah, just pull E2.
1.5. You could not play him at his best even if you wanted to, unless you were one of the rare few who unironically played E6 Yukong. All of their limitations are what make Jingliu stand out. While the Imbibitor Lunai still held the record for the highest damage, none of that mattered when it was all theoretical and literally unobtainable. On the other hand, Jingliu was a bit more balanced, which initially worked to her benefit. The gist of her gameplay is to activate her talent, which you can do so through her skill, ultimate, and/or tech.
Did bro just say ta?
Benefit. The gist of her gameplay is to activate her talent, which you can do so.
Her ta? Oh, talent. Oh my fucking god, I'm dented. Talent.
So through her skill,
Bro, I swear that
ultimate,
I
and/or
swear I
technique,
thought he
each
said
granting
ta.
a stack of syzygy. Upon reaching 2 stacks,
Her ta.
Jingliu immediately advances forward to be next in line to act, and she gains 50% bonus crit rate for the duration of her talent. Her skill would then become
Wait, it's not just me, right? Wait, I swear it's not just me. Is it just me? I cannot unhear him saying her ta. It's not just me, right? Her ta.
empowered to consume
That's
stacks
good, that's
instead
good.
of SP, dealing a huge amount of blast damage on its own, but an additional amount of DPS will be tacked onto it, along with her basic and ultimate, by essentially having her entire party pay a health cost. Jingliu's appeal came from how easy it is to get her into prime position. If you can use her technique before getting in battle, which you can in all 3 endgame modes, then with just one cast of skill you basically started the fight with her talent active. Furthermore, you could extend the duration of this state by using her ultimate to give you an additional stack, allowing you to get a third skill off before she would have to reset and build up her supply again. At the time, the damage on her attacks was essentially the weighted average of Lunai Dan Heng's. I don't know how many gacha players on her attacks was essentially the weighted average of Lunai.
That's a very arbitrary number. Because, like, realistically speaking, you would never run Dan Heng with, like, a... Like, how would this be possible? You should always be allocating 3 skill points to my man, E0 or EE2. Right, regardless. This is, I don't really get this, but, okay.
Lunai Dan Heng's. I don't know how many gacha players are into Smash Bros, but to make an analogy, Jingliu was to Dan Heng what Chrom and Lucina are to Roy and
I
Ma.
have no idea
In
what this
layman's
is.
terms, she
Yo,
had a
chat,
lower
type
ceiling
Y if you
in
play Super Smash
exchange
Bros.
for a much higher
I've
floor,
never
making
played this
her
my entire life.
extremely consistent. Because of how
Never
fast she
ever
could
played this
get
my
into
entire
her
life.
empowered state, Jingliu's playstyle worked nicely with the general sentiment that front-loaded burst damage is the way to go. She could get her 2 stacks immediately at the start of battle, then nuke everyone with her ultimate and skill, taking advantage of her sheer base strength. On the subject of base strength, that was another factor behind her early popularity. For all intents and purposes, she effectively had all of the positives of Yanqing with none of the negatives. 50% crit rate just by existing is a huge weight off your shoulders. With her empowered skill having no SP cost, she was also very SP positive. Not only that, but she had one of the most convenient techniques in the game, guaranteeing a freeze at the start of battle. And she even added token amount of protection through her A2 trace.
I've almost never seen this being useful in, like, any situation, to be fair.
I meant it when I said you could pull her right off the shelf and get going with her right away. Though that's not to say she was an early game pick. Being heavily driven by base strength, maxing her traces was integral to seeing her at full strength.
I did not even know Jingliu has 35% effect rest. Like, straight up. I didn't even know that thing existed, but
That
okay.
being said, if you had to choose between a unit who peaks with ability level or a unit who peaks with relics, everyone would choose the former without hesitation. The only thing you had to keep in mind when playing her was to only use her ultimate while her talent was in effect, lest you miss out on a ton of DPS. But that's about it. Altogether, you had someone with great SP economy, phenomenal front-loaded damage, a fair amount of wave clear being a blast attacker, she could use just about any teammate courtesy of her low SP cost, and the potential to freeze enemies was a nice bonus.
Team flexibility. Generally speaking, you're always tied to her with Bronya, with a Pella or a Tingyun, for the most part. Oh, we could also run the Jingliu Blade DPS. Okay, we're not gonna talk about Bubbin because like Bubbin is Bubbin. So, like back in the days, I think it's generally just Tingyun, Pella, Bronya, which is I think they're quite accessible, right? Hue is the best slot. People only use Luocha here because they're poor and they didn't pull for the better sustain. Hue is definitely the best slot in any case, anyways. So, yeah.
You could use just about any teammate courtesy of her low SP cost, and the potential to freeze enemies was a nice bonus. To the surprise of no one, she quickly established herself as the best attacker in the game. A title that unfortunately she would not keep for too long. Chief among the factors leading to Jingliu's decline is that her greatest asset of being self-contained is also her greatest flaw. She had access to a variety of party members, but only because there's nothing she specifically needed, therefore she can make do with anything. However, whatever support she got would only go as far as what that support was, and not a single bit more. For example, Bronya's turn advancement on Seela is so valuable since it doesn't give her just one turn, but the potential for a second one thanks to Seela's reset mechanic. Or another one, Sparkle's SP replenishment to Lunai Danheng is reciprocated by his gluttonous consumption of it, which is a good thing for Sparkle as her party-wide damage buff hinges on spending lots of SP. In a similar fashion to how Jingliu unlocks himself out of joining the greater follow-up attack engine, Jingliu locks herself out of, well, basically everything. She's too self-contained that she becomes unable to adapt to or assimilate any outside changes that could positively affect her. Jingliu's team has practically not been updated since the day she came out. Her current best party right now, I would say, is herself, Luocha, Bronya, and Pela, all of whom were available before 1.4. Once more, you could make use of...
Okay, basically we are lacking a dedicated Jingliu support, right? Because Jingliu's kit is more or less done. Quote unquote done. So because we don't have a dedicated Jingliu support, and after releasing units for like 1.5 years, you can start to see the pieces for like different Honkai Starbucks units kind of fall into place. In Biblical Dune, you lack skill point, slap on a Sparkle. DOT. Now we have Babin and Ranmei. Follow up team comp. They're all, they used to have like this kind of like downsides. Like they were missing something. And then now if you piece by piece by piece, they all come together, it's like they are not really missing anything anymore. Whereas because Jingliu, she was so complete at the start, now she's lacking behind. You know what I'm saying? It's like she's the kid that peaked at high school. Oh, the high school king or queen. Everybody, you were so popular. Everybody loves them, right? But you just basically peaked at high school. Whereas once everyone else got a job and like just gone on with their lives, you're still peaking at high school. So that's basically the situation with Jingliu.
Your support characters like Sparkle, Robin, Huohuo, Ranmei, and such, but there's no semblance of complement between them and Jingliu. You're better off attaching them to units who can take their supportive faculty much further than just a one-to-one conversion.
First of all, Huan Huan fits with everybody. All right, get this bitch out of her face. She fits with everybody. Everything else, Babin also with everybody.
This obviously presents an issue with future-proofing, or lack thereof. Anytime a new support comes out, Jingliu will never be the biggest beneficiary of them because she's so self-contained to a fault that while she doesn't need anyone, it also means she doesn't synergize with anyone beyond what they intrinsically offer. Even Jingyuan, who I mentioned suffers from not having much room for synergy, can still benefit from things like bonus follow-up attack damage, bonus summon damage, stuff like that. But Jingliu doesn't really have much that can boost her by a substantial amount. She has a custom ammo system, Syzygy, compared to Lunai Danheng who functions off a universal ammo system, skill points. Jingliu is not a follow-up attacker, nor a breaker, nor a dot dealer, nor a counter-attacker, nothing of the sort. She's just plain damage. Good damage, mind you, but there's only so much you can do with just that. Every DPS unit that has come out since version 2 was designed to account for possible future inclusions that could improve their current standing. For example, Akron's ultimate can stack up if anyone on the party inflicts a debuff, not just her, meaning any debuff-oriented support like the recently added Jiaoqiu will further push her up the rankings. Firefly's a break-oriented hybrid carry. Anyone who can shred toughness gauges, give her more break effect, or do something pertaining to breaks will further push her up the rankings. Most notably, virtually everyone in the follow-up attack engine gets buffed whenever a new follow-up attacker gets released. Topaz, Ratio, and Aventurine all got buffed when Robin
Ratio fell off,
then those 4 units all got buffed when Jade came out, then those 5 units all got buffed when March came out, then those 6 units all got buffed when Fei Shao came out, so on and so forth. Comparatively, no one looks at a new character and goes, yo, they would go so well with Jingliu. Am I trying?
I mean, I don't think it's like completely impossible though. Like, for example, I think we are lacking a unit that can buff skill damage. Just like how in Biblical Dune with Sparkle, she doesn't buff like basic attack damage. Or like skill plus ultimate damage. I think that would be pretty cool if we can get a buffer like that. That would really, really benefit Jingliu specifically because a lot of our other crit DPSs, I don't think they rely that heavily on skill, with the exception of like probably Scylla, Welt, Yang. Which other crit DPS uses skill damage? Because Akron is not it unless you use E6. Inhibitor is not it. It's basically her, right? Jingliu, Scylla, and Welt Yang. Fei Xiao's skill damage is like very, very low. It's not, she's like ultimate damage. So yeah, she has this kind of weird niche of skill damage. So if you have some kind of a skill damage amplifier, that would be pretty good. Also, a buffer that ties their buffs to their turn would be very, very good for Jingliu. Because one of the problems with her right now is, like, for example, if you run with Bronya, right? The buffs go off like almost instantly. Same thing as Ting Yun, if you give her like attack or energy buffs. Because Jingliu's extra turn, it consumes one turn of the buff, which makes the buff like completely worthless. So if we get like some sort of a skill damage buffer with the buffs tied to their own turns, like Bourbon and Runmei, I think that will put Jingliu at a pretty decent position. Not to say that she's gonna be like completely broken, but at least it's like a more dedicated support, which is something that a lot of our recent DPSs already received as of like patch 2.x, right? So yeah.
Trying to insinuate that Jingliu isn't worth building. Absolutely not. She's still a really strong and reliable character. It's just that over the past few years, while other characters have gone from 0
Past few years, oh my god, guys, it's been 5 years since Honkai Starbucks. Insane.
to hero, Jingliu has been stagnating due to not getting indirectly buffed from anything. If we were to grasp Vestros, the one thing that can help her out is Freeze, given she has a way to initiate combat with him. But we've been having trouble finding good situations to use her specifically in. Mostly because, once again, there's no combination of memory turbulence or blessing that can work in her favor. It's always one of the engines, follow-ups, damage over time, break, etc. Granted, there have been cycles with enemies that are weak to ice. I recall during springtime they had a few cycles that were ice-oriented, but it just so happened that lightning was also present for most of them, and yeah, there's Akron. From 2.2 until now, we haven't had a single ice-oriented chamber, I don't think. Over the past month, we've had the Big Sleep, which is ice-oriented for the second wave, marking the first time Jingliu has been able to find a use case. And by the time you see this, the current Epoch Shadow is practically made for Jingliu if it wasn't apparent by the 55% ice damage axiom. However, she's not the best person for the Cycle Blessing, as it favors the
It was meant for Yanqing. 万箭天来.
follow-up attack engine. Therein lies the biggest issue affecting her current condition. She's nothing but a brute force attacker in a meta where brute force attacking just isn't a thing anymore. For brute force attacking to be good, it needs to be Akron levels to overcome that, and though Jingliu still outputs considerable damage, she's a product of version 1's power scaling. What made her so valuable in the early days was that she had no gimmick, making her more reliable and consistent to use. But in light of the direction StarRail's taking right now, characters need to specialize in something to even be considered, let alone meta relevant. Aventuring's a tank who can follow-up attack, Yunli's a counterattacker, Xiao Chuo's a dot debuffer, Fei Xiao's a Aventuring's a tank who can follow-up attack, Yunli's a counterattacker,
Just so cute. The Freyren face.
Xiao Chuo's a dot debuffer, Fei Xiao's a boss killer who revolves around follow-ups, Ling Xiao's a summon break-oriented healer. I would say the only gimmick to Jingliu's name is a party-wide HP drain, which I suppose is worth going over. A niche yet surprisingly competitive team during 1.4 was Jingliu and Blade. Until Jade, Jingliu was the only unit who can drain the help of her party members.
The Jingliu Blade team with a Runmei. Insane.
Making her the only one who can support Blade's win condition of killing himself, despite not being a support herself. It was the first case of a double carry team composition in honkaistarrail, and credit where it's due, it wasn't half bad. Of course, nowadays it's not a very efficient party with how far we've come in regards to min-maxing, and unfortunately there doesn't seem to be any indication of health draining becoming a new engine either. We did get Jade, but she's more of a follow-up attacker, not an HP taker. Furthermore, I have a feeling even if such an engine were to come out,
And I think Jade works pretty well with Blade, right? Okay, I didn't get Jade, but I'm pretty sure Jade still works pretty well with Blade. Especially for pure fiction.
Jingliu wouldn't be able to capitalize on it. She herself doesn't work out the loss or gain of health, so it would make little sense to pair her up with Jade or possible future lifestealers on account of it doing nothing for her.
Life stealers! Yeah, we need a Vladimir in-game.
Firstly, Jingliu's a main DPS, so her own life-stealing mechanic wouldn't be an optimal choice to have for a future attacker, as that would force you to play her as a support or secondary DPS at best. Why this doesn't work is because Jingliu's kit necessitates full attention being directed towards her, being a hyper-carrying doll. And besides, if a character comes out with an identical attack style to Blade, they would rather have a dedicated support, not Jingliu. The way I can see her using the HP loss mechanic is if something comes out with a quantity-based activation requirement, as in it doesn't matter how much HP is drained, just if HP is drained. Given she can lifesteal her entire party, that's 3 people losing HP per action. Generally speaking though, she just doesn't have a gimmick that can actually be weaponized, leaving us with only 2 options to get her back to form. Option 1, force an ice meta. By that I mean make.
Okay, so at this point, I think he's mentioning how do we make Jingliu great again? How do we make Jingliu great? Okay, before we continue to how do we make Jingliu great again, to kind of just summarize the thoughts. So, in summary, Jingliu, as of this current 2.x going into 3.0 in Honkai Starbucks, she quote unquote fell off because she fails to specialize in a niche. I think that's what I'm getting at from this video. She fails to specialize in a niche, whereas a niche is not like a single unit, but like a team comp. The follow-up niche, the super break niche, the bubbin niche, the DOT niche. So because Jingliu doesn't really fit into like any niche category, she lacks an identity. She lacks a purpose. She serves zero. She lacks a purpose to really find out exactly how do we make a team comp that can revolve around Jingliu and amplify her damage to the utmost amount compared to units like Fei Xiao, Acheron, Super Break, Firefly, Barbin, and all that kind of stuff, right? So that is essentially the summarized version of why Jingliu is not as strong as this current moment. Because going into the future, I think we can kind of all see the direction MiHoYo is going. They are no longer releasing a single broken DPS anymore. Even for Acheron, it's not exactly just Acheron, especially at E0, right? You have supports that can make Acheron great, like Jiao Qiu. And then if you talk about Fei Xiao, although Fei Xiao works by itself, with Bubbin, with the floor, it just makes them even better. So if MiHoYo makes more and more different units that can, synergize with one another better, then Jingliu's appeal is not that high when she graduated and peaked at high school. Then you just run her with the classic Bronya Pella and Huan Huan or Luo Chao team. Then she's basically done. Unless we get a dedicated support, which I think we are going to be talking about in this portion of the video, which is how do we make Jingliu great again?
Us with only two options to get her back to form. Option 1, force an ice meta. By that I
Not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. What, dissociation from Divergent Universe? When an enemy is frozen, we deal like 1 billion damage with dissociation? I just don't think it's happening. Because I don't even think Jingliu has a freeze in her own kit, right? At least Yanqing has a freeze. Our real king, Yan King, has the 61% base chance of freezing the enemy target. He could actually freeze. This fraud Jingliu can't even freeze. The only freeze is from the technique, and then she can't freeze anymore unless you break. Right? It's just Yanqing actually has a freeze. So she's not the freeze is when she breaks the enemy, all from a technique. So yeah, and Ice Mana will ironically make Yanqing great again. Yanqing great again. I don't think Ice Mana is good. How did they even make Ice Mana? It's just dissociation, right? Some kind of dissociation with like a, I don't know, right? But I don't think it's gonna
make
this.
supports or conditions that drastically favor ice element units. Jingliu is still by and large the only worthwhile ice DPS to build, not counting Herda and
It'll keep my king's name out your fucking mouth. Yanqing. Our king. Alright, hey, come the fuck. Now show him some respect.
Perfection. So if a support comes out with a buff that gives
Who the fuck is that? Shenghe? Oh, Shenghe! Oh, Shenghe from Genshin Impact. The big Aboba lady.
ice units a 200% crit damage boost or something, that's a way you can buff Jingliu without buffing the competition. This can be difficult to pull off without it being egregiously obvious what HoYo is trying to do. An alternative.
Oh, can you imagine like if they release some kind of support? Fire damage increase 500%. Electric damage increase 5, or like it's actually like playing Pokemon. You know, like Pokemon, your Eevee, when you give her like the Leaf Stone, Moonstone, Firestone, and then you get a 5. Oh, that would be kind of diabolical.
Would be to make freeze a more impactful crowd control effect. A planar ornament set that reduces enemy defense by 30% or something when frozen, that could buff Jingliu a lot by virtue of her technique, and it would be less conspicuous as it can technically also buff Misha. Option 2, and the more unlikely one, making a support who rewards characters for not using SP with their skill.
I think this is a more likely direction.
One, making
a support that rewards the low skill point usage. Yeah, that's pretty good. Right. On top of that, you give her like a skill damage buff, ultimate damage buff. The buffs being tied to the support's turn instead of Jingliu's turn, because Jingliu does use quite little skill point compared to a lot of our hyper carries. I think she's still considered one of the lowest skill point usage, right? With like, aside from Blade. Because almost every other hyper carry you want to use that skill. Acheron, Fei Xiao. Yeah. She is very low skill point usage.
Support who rewards characters for not using SP with their skill. We already have Sparkle who gives you an incentive to burn SP, but not a support who gives players an incentive to not burn
I think that will be the direction. There's an excellent direction.
Jingliu's custom ammo system in the form of syzygy enables her to attack enemies without using up SP. There aren't that many units to attack in that way. I think she might be the only one who still deals damage without costing SP. Actually, there is one more, but we're not gonna talk about him. Anyway, a buff that gives you bonus damage if the skill doesn't consume SP is one other option for making Jingliu strong. Expectedly, both solutions are pushing it, and that's why I think she's losing a lot of presence in the metagame. Jingliu is a general character in a meta that's only progressively becoming more specialized. Lunai, Danheng, and Blade have also been losing ground as a result of being nothing but regular attackers. Modern destruction units like Firefly and Yunli have been given the aforementioned specialization.
Yunli is... Oh my god. I need Yunli. Next time when she reruns, we're getting her.
Breaks and counter follow-up respectively. So, has Jingliu fallen off? Yes? Definitely.
I like how he says it with a question mark because he doesn't want to get cancelled. Yes. Yes. She fell off. Done. Go next.
From her previous #1 standing, of that I'm certain, but at the same time, it's hard to say that she's washed. Even with all the new characters, she's still highly priced for being consistent, strong, and self-contained. Those strengths are
war
not
time?
diminished,
I'll give him 5
but
seconds.
only time will tell how long that will last for. If a new Ice DPS comes out later on in version 2 or version 3, she's gonna be in big trouble. And not to get too far ahead of myself here, but let's just say a puppet with attitude problems has something to say in the not so distant future.
What? We were getting 5-star Herta? Okay, we get 5-star Herta. It's Joe for Jingliu. Just go next. Excellent goddamn video. Excellent goddamn video. Right? So, has Jingliu fell off? The question is, yes, she has, right? And she's basically done. Save your pools, save your 3.0 DPS, and you're gonna be redeemed. Word of the day, it's gonna be fell off. Join Discord, join Twitch, join YouTube. All the best for future posts. I'll see you guys next time.